Hi, welcome to Lilitown Williams' weekly show, Immigrants Speak. I am her co-host, Amani, and today we're more than happy to welcome back Ms. She Van Fleet, the freedom advocate and very outspoken activist in the USA today. Welcome back, Ms. She.
Oh, thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, today we would like to talk about the mainstream media's propaganda tactics that are very similar to what I have seen in CCP's propaganda department. So, Ms. Shi, would you like to tell us what the most current events that you're most concerned are?
Yeah, of course, every day we get fed by the propaganda machine, just so similar to CCP propaganda machine that I grew up with, and where you worked as a member of that machine. So today, I think it's great that we just focus on this very important topic. And the latest news, of course, is the death of Jordan Neely. And there was a lot of news coverage. And I think to a lot of people, and it reminds us of the 2020 George Floyd death, the same kind of coverage, a lot of similarities, almost exact copy of the coverage of that story. And so immediately, you notice one thing, that's a very important thing, that this is the perfect ingredient and a fit the left narrative. The person that died is a Black person, and the so-called killer is white. This has to be the most important ingredient before the story become important for the left, and then the rest is not really relevant. Okay, so what happened? Why he was killed? And then we have to dig in, right? So you read the headline. So here I have one. Jordan Neely, man killed in chokehold in New York subway, remembered as entertainer, shattered by his mother's murder. Okay, so that's one of the headline that I got. Subway chokehold, Jordan died from chokehold during an encounter on the train. Okay, encounter. What encounter? We don't know, right? Or we probably didn't want us to know. And then once you get into more detail, and which I got my story mostly from Twitter, because that's where I get most of my news. And then we learned that Neely was arrested 44 times before. Of course, that's not important fact. Not important for this story. And then we learned why he was killed. He was threatening the passengers that he will kill them. And that's another important piece of information that we, as a news consumer, should know, according to the mainstream media. And isn't that what we have been fed, the kind of propaganda? For how long? For decades. And only got worse recently. So it just reminds me of CCP propaganda. And because, but there was something though, there was something different. The CCP has already had power. So they can do whatever. They can control the news. They can let you know what they want to know, which is pretty much what's happening here. But at least that we still have conservative media. We still can get some information on platforms such as Twitter. But in CCP, that's a total control. But when I compare this to, and of course, the left has to be more tactful. They have to be more sophisticated in doing their propaganda. And one of the most important thing I noticed is omission. Just like the example I gave, just they omit some of the most important facts from the story. So people just would not question, and using their narrative, they would not question the truth of the story. The other thing I noticed is the choose of words. Of course, that's narrative, right? So they choose encounter. It's a neutral word. Yeah, encounter. What kind of encounter? And of course, they choose every word very carefully. And so that's how they control the narrative. And also, we talked about agenda. What is propaganda? Tell me since you are the insider of the CCP propaganda machine, you tell me, or tell us, tell the audience, what is propaganda?
Well, it's very simple. When I was back at the CCP government's propaganda sector, went through trainings. Our job was to guide public opinion in the correct direction where the
Correct.
party wants. Yes, the correct direction means whatever the party believes and whatever the party wants the people to believe, that is the correct public opinion. Many times when we took tests and when we went through trainings where we were told, like, for example, if a basic simple fact negates with the party's policies, we as qualified journalists, what should we do? Number one, tell the simple facts. Number two, adjust simple facts according to the party's policies. Number three, adjust simple facts according to the people's needs. Of course, for me, I was so naive. I chose number one without hesitation. Tell the simple facts, right? But no, the correct answer is number two. Adjust simple facts according to the party's policies. So it's very clear. It's propaganda is very simple. It's to create a false image of the party where everything that's good that happens in the world is to the party's credit. Whereas anything that's bad that happens in the world or in this country is somebody else's fault. So it's to maintain the positive image of the party, is to basically create a false reality where our socialist system is the most advanced, most progressive, and unquestionably the most beneficial for the people. Yeah. Therefore, if any facts, if any truth, if any events that happens in reality that does not support that claim, it needs to be taken out of context and needs to be distorted. It needs to be painted with a different color, the narrative, to maintain the narrative that our party is responsible for all the good things that happen in this country, and somebody else, either being Western imperialist or anti-China powers with ulterior motives or separatists or whatever, everyone else is responsible for everything that is bad, everything bad that happens in this country. Therefore, to keep the people loyal to the party forever.
I hope that the audience can see that the same tactic is applying here. Absolutely. But what's their agenda? And I think by now more and more people realize their agenda is of course control people's mind, right? And then create this false reality that America is a racist country, and then the blacks were hunted or minorities, but they don't care really about inconvenient truths, such as the Asian woman, Michelle Go, maybe Go, and that was pushed to the incoming train and killed. And no, that's not convenient truth to them. So they have to create a narrative or false reality that minorities, increasingly minorities, that are marginalized, that was hunted down by the police. So this is a racist country, rotten to the core. And what do we need to do? We need to rise up and overthrow it. That's what I see. I don't know about you.
I do see exactly the same tactics, like you said earlier. For example, they take things out of context. They omit the circumstances or backgrounds of a certain people. Like, for example, in this example, Jordan Neely, they omit the fact that he was actually arrested over 40 times. That means he has a very criminal pattern of behavior. That he's not a mere victim. He might be a victim of his circumstances, but he has a behavior that is harmful to society and dangerous to other people. But they omit that fact to paint him as the pure victim in this incident, and also the circumstances of his death when it happens. They omit the fact that he was actually threatening the people on the train. It is very clear. It's like the same tactics that we had to do. Like, for example, in 1999, I remember right now, it's like, I have heard that the Chinese government is commemorating the two people who died in the Yugoslavian embassy bombing back in 1999. I was still a college student when it happened. I remember it very clearly when there was under the Clinton administration. The Chinese government was given plenty of warning to evacuate the embassy before it was bombed, but they did not listen. And after the bombing happened,
they did not want to listen.
They did not, or we don't know. The fact is they did not evacuate completely the embassy, and that led to the death of two employees. Well, I was still a college student. I was in my senior year, and it was a huge deal. And the Chinese government made it such a huge deal out of it that they organized and they basically instigated students, college students, to go to the American embassy in Beijing and protest. I didn't join, but many of my friends went. They actually sent buses to two college campuses, organized the students to protest. One of my best friends in the world, like he went to join the protest, and he only went to peacefully protest. But when they got there, the security guards in front of the American embassy, it was like they were all Chinese soldiers from the PLA. They actually were handing out bricks and rocks to the students and telling them to smash the windows of the American embassy, to smash the trees and roof and throw things to basically cause damage to the embassy. And he was very shocked when he came back. He told me, he's like, I only went there to peacefully protest, but people there from the government were actually instigating the students to become violent. And the Chinese government at the time demanded an apology from the Clinton administration. While he did not apologize, he only said, I'm sorry. And the Chinese government was unhappy about that. They demanded an official apology, but he refused to. So the protests domestically from the students started to become violent and aggressive and became more and more out of control. So the Chinese government started to worry finally, because even though they are the ones who instigated these protests, but they started to worry that it'll go out of control. So a couple of weeks later, after the Clinton administration issued another statement, suddenly in the news, they said the Clinton administration expressed a profound apologetic sentiment. And in Chinese, this was all in Chinese news. So that appeased the student protesters. The students thought, okay, the Clinton administration, they finally apologized. We got what we wanted. Our government won back our dignity, won back our faith. So they dispersed and everything. So about a year and a half later, I graduated and started working at the China Radio International. And by chance, I obtained a copy of that statement, actually issued by the Clinton administration. And then I realized he never truly apologized. He said, the second statement just said, I am very sorry. So instead of just translating it accurately and, into from I'm sorry to I'm very sorry, they used wordplay. And they said in Chinese that he expressed profound apologetic sentiment to appease the students. So that was the moment when I realized this was all nothing but wordplay. It's nothing but to keep the authorities, to keep their faith, keep the people's faith in them, keep the people's loyalty to them, and never take responsibilities for anything that they have done. So it's like what you said, what you described, the headlines in the Western media here about the Jordan Neely incident. It's almost exactly the same play.
And also George Floyd, is that exactly the same?
Yes, exactly the same play. It's taking things out of context, amid the background and the facts that these people are not heroes. They had mental issues. They had criminal behavior patterns. They were not the victims of what they call racism, whatever. They're the victims of their own behaviors and their own circumstances. They sprinkle some facts in there. They don't just tell you the lies. That's how propaganda is made. Because
and here I want to read the tweet from USA Today. Jordan Neely, a beloved subway performer, grew up in a family of musicians who want him to be remembered as a human being, a family lawyer said. So yeah. So of course he should not be dead, and he shouldn't, and that's nobody said he should die. That was not everybody was against it. They're against, like all of us. It's the media manipulate the facts to what? To really push agenda. And that is the agenda of destroy America. And at the same time, they defund the police, and they made big cities like New York so unsafe for everyone. So they have another goal is to now they really want to punish people who basically doing the carry out their constitutional right to defend themselves. Now their conduct is deemed as criminal, while the real criminal are deemed as a victim and many times heroes, and like in George Floyd case, like a martyr.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the goal is to target good people and to target good and honest behavior. I mean, yeah, like you said, nobody wished him dead. He doesn't deserve to die. But under the circumstances, it was nothing but a tragedy. It was a tragic accident. The retired Marine did the right thing to subdue him when he threatened to hurt people, to hurt innocent people, and not just one, many people on the train. But they completely ignored that, and they took one or three simple facts and blow it out of proportion to create this false image, this false impression that everyone who dares to challenge someone's like a black person's threatening behavior is a white supremacist, and their motive is just to suppress black people. That's exactly the same tactic, that the CCP uses. They take a few facts. They don't tell you outright lies, because no one would believe outright lies. They take a few facts and they blow it out of proportion because it fits their agenda, it fits their narrative. And the agenda is in China, it's simple. It's to keep people loyal to the party. Here, I think it's the same thing. It's to keep people loyal to the leftists' narrative. So the people would always automatically assume, yes, this is what America is like. We need to bring down everything and rebuild with, their Marxist ideology.
I think I'd like to summarize like in CCP's China, what they do has a very clear goal, is to maintain power. And in America, all the left have been doing is for another goal, is to get power. Once they get power, they will continue what CCP has been doing, because that's the only way for them to get and maintain power, is to control the narrative, control the basically the media. And as we all know, media is the fourth branch of the government, and its obligation is very clear. Should really to keep an eye on the government and keep an eye on the government possible abuse of power. But they joined. Now they joined the left and become their mouthpiece, right? But Chinese government was very clear. They just say the media, like you said in the training, right? They say media is the mouthpiece of the CCP, and here the same thing.
Yeah,
they just out loud said it, but that's what they're doing, and for a long time.
Yeah, it's very clear to me now, because I see the same tactics that I have lived through. I have had to learn to use those tactics. And what I want to say is that for the people, for the audience who are consuming all these news outlets, narratives, keep an eye out for it. Like, do not just immediately fall into their traps. It is a trap. It's to
absolutely
lure you. Yeah, it's to
emotional
lure you
trap
in.
A lot of times. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what they try to create in their audience, like the negative feelings about America, about the whole system, about the society, about the people. And when they evoke those negative emotions in you with their misleading headlines or with their very highly emotionally biased pieces, watch out for that.
Yeah, could you just explain a little bit of the I remember the funeral of those two employees killed in the embassy. That was a display of such a public display, right? They and I think that the CCP really have no concern about human life.
No.
They killed millions, up to like 80 million people. But for this, I remember that funeral. I'm sure you were there, and you can describe and how they play on people's emotion.
Well, I wasn't there at the funeral because I was still in college. I was still just a senior student in college. Yeah, but it's about the same thing, like when George Floyd had like a national service for his funeral. It's to play on people's emotions. Yes. But it's very clear to me what they have, the CCP propaganda sector and the Western mainstream media now have in common is that people are a tool to them. They to them are means to an end. There are hundreds of people, dozens, if not hundreds, of Black people are being killed on the streets of Chicago, and yeah, they do not care when they report on it. It's so light, like so lightly touched. It's almost as if it's nothing. But when a white person kills a Black person, whose life they truly do not care. I mean, this guy, this Jordan Neely guy, he needed help mentally. He needed help, but New York did not provide the help that he needed. When he was alive, he was nobody. He was nothing. Once he's dead and he serves their purpose of proving their ideology and proving their narrative, then he is used as a tool
Absolutely.
to prey on people's emotions. He will be giving a big funeral. It's the same as in China. These two employees, when they were there, they were alive,
They could have been saved
nobody
by
cared.
being evacuated, right?
Exactly. They could have been evacuated. So they had the warnings, but no, they did not evacuate them. They were there once they're dead, and it serves their purpose to instigate negative emotions in the young people, to instigate the young people to protest and even become violent. That served their purpose. Therefore, they use these two people's deaths as a tool to prey on people's emotional side. That is the tactic that's exactly the same that I'm seeing happening here. And it's frightening. I have to say, it's frightening to me. And what's more frightening is that the people who are not paying close attention are falling for this trap.
Absolutely. Because the tactics they use, the people who don't bother to go out of their way to search the other side of the story, to get a full picture of the fact, and that's they also prey on human psychology. People just mostly they're busy, they're busy with their lives. They just depend on the media, and more and more realize, but still a lot don't realize that media is no longer a media; it's a propaganda machine.
Yes.
And so and also play on people's emotion, and that's how they were able to control people's mind. I like to again alert the audience that the reason we see this is because we experienced the same thing in a different country, and it is a communist country, it's a totalitarian country, and we want people to really see, what we experienced, and otherwise it will take much longer for people to wake up to the reality that we all have been manipulated by this new propaganda machine that's no longer a free press, and it's no longer unbiased media. I think that's our warning.
I also want to say, as someone who has worked in the propaganda sector for so many years, I want to say to the people who are in journalism, who are in these media outlets, there will come a time when you have to face yourself. Like when I was in China Radio International, I was so disgusted by the lies that I had to tell. I was disgusted with myself. There is a thing that's like human conscience and neurology. Like when you have to tell lies, when there is a purpose to it, and even if you're doing it now for maintaining your job, for feeding your family, eventually, when you have to do it for so long, when you have to wedge at this connection between what you say and what you truly feel for so long, it's bound to impact your mental health and your physical health, because humans are not conditioned to tell long-term lies always. When you know the truth and you feel there is something wrong in this manipulating the truth, taking things out of context just to serve a purpose of creating this false narrative, if you feel there's something wrong with it, don't do it. Don't go along with it. You may lose the job today, but in another decade, what you might lose is more than your job.
It's freedom and possibility lives. We've seen that it happened in China, and it will happen if we don't stop it.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything more you would like to add?
I think we covered a lot, and I just so appreciate your story, and I hope that the audience will really, really take our words to heart, that we are here to tell you the cautionary tale, and we are here to defend our last stand of freedom.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shi, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.